Well, howdy, folks. How you going? God, I need a haircut, don't I? I just managed to grab a look at my head then. It's never good at the best of times, I understand. But, yeah, hair absolutely everywhere. So I have managed to dig out the clippers. Rest assured, we'll figure that out in the not-too-distant future. Well, been bloody cold again today. I'm in the regular thank you, Tasmania, for the Fleecy. She's bloody great. Flanny, I should say. And it has been keeping me very warm for the last few days. So excellent stuff. Say hello to a few folks who are in the room. Hello, Elizabeth Carter already. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And good to have you joining us this evening. Sue is, of course, in the room. In fact, first tonight, Aussie Sue. Lovely to have you in from Mount Isa. Pamela's in. Paul's back doing a bit of work this week. Paul, we'll talk about that. Thank you very much, brother, for what you're doing there. And J1 coming up too. Oh, Paul, I was talking to a fella today who might know you. Rolly, his name is. Interesting bloke. I've got to import some photos so I can talk about that with the lady who we will have on screen in the very near future. Thank you for reminding me all about that. Yeah, an interesting show last night I've had a little bit of reaction to, and that reaction has been around the fact that it is possible to grow your own silver. I didn't realize that was actually a thing. As it turns out, it's quite a thing. But there are, a number of issues with doing it, not least of which is it's very dangerous. It produces, produces a great deal of chemical reaction and byproduct that you have to get rid of in very specific ways. I've been contacted by one such gentleman, and he's sent me a few photos. He grows his own silver, which is spectacular. And I mean grows it. These are silver crystals. And then he mounts them in what looks to be perspex there, or beautiful little boxes. Let me bring up another one for you. That's a bit of an idea of how it all comes up. That's particularly beautiful. That's the way it grows and reacts in the solution that it's in. And there you go. I think that's the same one. And then there are a few other things. He doesn't grow these, but certainly they aren't silver, but maybe as good as gold. Yeah. He sent me that just to make me hungry, I guess, bastard. A nice muddy, but there you go. You can actually grow silver. Who knew? I thought it only ever came out of rocks. I didn't know it was a crystal. So there's me in chemistry gone. Thankfully, don't rely on me for chemistry. Don't rely on me for financial advice, because I don't give it. Neither does the lady I'm about to talk to, but she does know a bit about the area. Hello, Catherine Smith from Freedom Financial Services. God love you. You look greatly refreshed after your holiday. Welcome home.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back in Australia, I can tell you. Travelling is not all it's made out to be.
Well, you particularly gave yourself an endurance event, can I say?
I did.
You were, 30 hours or more, and you knew you were going to be 30 hours or more in the air, wasn't it? Or just transiting?
And then Mexico, Guatemala. I had friends tell me it was lovely and safe. Don't get me started. Maybe we should do a whole show on my experiences in those countries, because don't go, particularly to Guatemala.
No. Wow.
I'm still having nightmares of men just walking down the streets with machetes and AK-47s or whatever they are. So yeah. And I had my family, and men are just walking along with machetes.
Wow. So I imagine you didn't stay in Guatemala very long.
Luckily, we're only there for about 4 days, but geez, we had an adventure. It was one day we almost thought we died 3 times.
Wow.
Another time we crashed the car and we had to change the tire with a man pointing an AK-47 at us while we're changing the tire.
Wow.
Yeah, so Australia is a really good place.
When you go on holidays, last time you went on holidays, there was, mud, guts and blood, but that was just in the outback of the Gold Coast. Now you take the kids to Guatemala for it. You love your adventures, your family.
Yeah, not anymore. I'm done. But the point of it all is getting back to Australia and realising just what an absolutely magnificent country we have got. and we have to save it. There's been times in the last 2 or 3 years when I just wanted to leave. It's like, just take me somewhere else. But now, having traveled, we've really got to save Australia. We just have to.
I've heard that a lot from a lot of people, particularly since the restrictions have been lifted and they've been able to go back out to various parts of the world, but everywhere is different. Certainly there are areas that are more dangerous than others. You seem to like those adventurous holidays. But I'm getting the same reports. It doesn't matter whether you're going to Italy or Germany or France or the UK or further into eastern parts of Europe. They're all saying the same thing. I guess in eastern parts of Europe, they're all worried about, what's going on with Ukraine and Russia and NATO particularly. There is no real belief, from my understanding of the people that I'm talking to in those places, that that Russia are doing anything other than protecting itself. So
as we know.
yeah. So the mainstream media are the only ones who are trying to prattle off that piece of bullshit to you. So what did you think about before we get into other things, I had no idea that you could grow silver. Thankfully, you got home okay. I'm really glad you did. And I know a good psychologist if you need help.
I think I do.
I didn't know silver was crystalline. Was a crystalline substance you could grow?
I'd had no idea. That could,
Right.
that could really be a thing of the future if we can make it safe. Because it's definitely a metal that's really in demand and likely to skyrocket in value. Because as far as I know, they can't make enough of it quick enough. So I don't know.
Well, I
how
believe the
much
process is quite significant. The chemicals involved are, fairly significant, and you actually need silver to start the process. So I've learned a little bit about it today, but what I've also learned is while it's 99.9% silver, you do not get, like, you couldn't walk into any of the bullion companies with it. And even if you'd melted it down and put it into a bar or something, you couldn't walk in and expect to get the spot rate of the refined silver that they sell. So that means your outlay for costs and whatnot are whatever they are. I dare say you still make some money on the deal, but it's not an easy process, and you have to do it in a safe manner. But I'm very intrigued to learn more about it, and the fellow who has sent me those photos is planning on sharing a few more and a bit more detail about it all. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that works. But I imagine that if we could all get a little silver farm happening at home, we'd all dump the veggies fairly smartly, and that's going to bring the price of silver down if you can grow it in your backyard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, I think I'd prefer the veggies because at least that can feed you.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
All right. So I've been up in far north Queensland recently, and was able to go on to a gold mine up there, a private gold mine, just owned by a couple of blokes. And it's not a huge operation by any stretch of the imagination. There aren't too many huge operations up in the Palmer. But I found it such an interesting place to be, to see, we talk about gold and silver all the time. And, I've been lucky enough to go into Ainsley Bullion and see some of the magnificent gold bars and gold coins that they have on offer. It was so interesting just to be right at that beginning process. And I remember sitting down on the first night with one of the guys there, Rob, and he said, look, there's nothing quite like pulling out a piece of gold that you're the first person in 50 million years or more to have seen. He said, and it's quite a thrill when you get at it and start looking at it, and the history that you go through to get to it. Some of the stuff that they pull out of the ground of historical, well, probably not much historical value, but certainly significance, from the gold rushes of the 1880s and through the early 1900s, was absolutely amazing. So I'm one of these people, as you well know, who can't afford 3,000 whatever dollars it is today to buy an ounce of gold. I was lucky enough to be able to go and pan some gold while I was there, and I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but there is 0.5 of a gram of gold in that little jar there, and I got that out of about 10 pans of concentrate. And I don't know what I'm doing, so probably half of that went over the edge of that as well. The only way that people like me are going to get an ounce of gold is if we go out and find it ourselves. Are you seeing amongst your contacts that there is a greater uptake in metal detecting and gold seeking or that kind of thing in general?
Funnily enough, when I went to Queensland last week to the community that we're building there, there was a massive solar eclipse, and all I wanted to find was a telescope. And my partner Samantha suggested cash converters, so I went into cash converters, and lo and behold, there was a man in there buying a metal detector.
Is that right? There you go.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess so. I also came back through the airport with gold, and for anyone who wants to know how to do that, keep it in your carry-on so that you keep you can keep a visual on it, and then when they want to inspect your bag, ask for a private room. So I did that, and then the security guard did the inspection, all good. And then they said, "What's going on? Is there a convention or something? So many people are coming through the airport with gold and silver."
Wow, really? So was the gold Mexican gold, can I ask?
No, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't trust anything Mexican.
Yeah, right. Because gold, you can quite easily go to Mexico and buy gold, but it's the quality of the gold, I guess, that also counts, doesn't it?
Yeah, you've got to be really careful. If you want to resell it, as you mentioned before, if you want to do it through the bullion dealers, it's going to have to be the proper bullion product that they stock. But as for the creation of the silver and mining of the gold, I mean, the whole point of gold and silver, it is a resource that can be used and is used in everything. Mobile phones, computers, airplanes, televisions, everything electronic uses gold and silver. So yeah, there are other ways. If you did create that silver, if that works, or you mine your own gold, there are other people that will buy it off you, not just the dealers, because it is a commodity that's in demand.
The thing that really got me, sort of brought home to me, and I know you've said it on occasion, and I've nodded my head in furious agreement, but it was really brought home to me when I just happened to glance at the price of gold just as we were sort of losing reception when I was heading into the Palmer River, right? And a quarter of a gram of gold would be worth, or half a gram, sorry, I beg your pardon. This is half a gram, just over half a gram of gold. Half a gram would have been just over $50 for 0.5 of a gram of gold. When I came out 5 days later, it was worth $60.
It's going up
So
quick.
the gold price had shot up fairly smartly just in that little time. Now, we're talking $10 over a half a gram of gold. Now, if you had an ounce of gold, it's gone up $50 or $60 there too, or more.
Yep.
So it's a good investment.
It's going up quick, and I can tell you, I think, well, in my opinion, it's going to absolutely escalate. We've spoken so many times about the upcoming financial crisis, and what gold normally does in an economic collapse is skyrocket. The likes of Jim Rickards, he used to say 10,000 an ounce. Now he's saying 15,000 an ounce. And that is
it's not inconceivable to believe there's going to be another gold rush in the very near future. 5 years ago, gold was around $1,200 an ounce. Today, it's $3,000 an ounce. In 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, what if it's $7,000 an ounce? What if it's $7,000 or $8,000? Would you want to know how to run a metal detector then and learn how to pan? That's probably a moot point at the moment, but it'd be something I think we'd want to be looking into. If you don't have the money to go and buy straight out of one of the bullion dealers, if you're going on a holiday, maybe you get the whole family out working for gold.
Yeah.
Or growing silver.
or growing silver, but just be careful. I mean, I wouldn't put that in front of my kids. They're liable to blow up the house quick smart. So
You'd want some kids that were pretty chemistry savvy, I think. Some of the chemicals involved, there are a lot of acids involved and chemical reactions. And if you put the wrong thing with the wrong thing, then you're going to have not necessarily an explosion, but a large outburst of energy that could potentially hurt you. And that's why, while I will go out and find out the whole process, I don't know that I'm going to show it to you in its entirety, because
I
I
can
don't want
imagine a
people
lot
to
of
go and
teenagers would go, let's do this, and then
yeah,
next thing,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So we will play it. We will play it very carefully, but I'm very interested to see how that goes. While I was up in far north Queensland, got the opportunity to talk with a number of people who brought up of their own volition self-managed super funds. They'd obviously, spoken or seen us speak previously. From the few details that I was able to glean, most of them, let's just say, are retired and haven't looked at doing tax in a while, and may well not be able to access whatever super they've got in little versions of it. But the conversations were fairly interesting, and there was a great deal of interest still in getting money out of big super and investing it into, well, they were talking all about silver. I'm obviously very keen to do that too. We've had a chat, and previously we've explained the process that Freedom Financial Service goes through to put a super or a self-managed super fund in place for somebody through this process. If you get a hold of me and go through CAS and whatever, you can get access to this deal. It's not a deal; anybody can do it. You can go to anybody to do it. You don't have to come here and do it through CAS. But recently, CAS, I think you mentioned it the last time we spoke, there was one disgruntled person who recently has gone out to write a letter that seems to have gone out just about everywhere. It's a bit unfortunate, that letter,
Yeah,
because it's having seen both and I know both sides of this issue quite well. I know all parties involved, sadly. Um, we really have to put or say something about it, because
yeah,
the letter is inaccurate in a number of ways,
yeah,
and I don't think I could leave that stand, given that Freedom Financial Services is a non-profit business that operates for the freedom movement.
yeah,
Any profits that are derived, you and your board allocate funds back out into the freedom movement to help push things. So there is no, and I don't believe there is any great suggestion of any impropriety or anything like that. Just somebody who I think got a bit disgruntled and thought customer service was lacking, and really the reality was quite different. Just well, maybe I should shut up and let you.
yeah. I'd really like clear the air about it. I mean, people on here might have seen it, but even those that haven't, get this out on air so people can search it and two sides to every story.
Yeah,
Going back a bit, like back into the pandemic, I've been an accountant, mortgage broker, superannuation specialist, what else? Financial planner, real estate agent, everything for 20 to 30 years. 2021 was my biggest year. I was selling house and land packages. And then obviously all the builders started going bankrupt. I sat at my office going, oh my God, what am I going to do? I was going to retire, because I just went, I don't need this anymore. I can retire. Some of you will know I've bought a farm in Wither in Gold Coast. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful place that we're setting up as a community.
yeah,
I was just going to retire and play with goats and animals and plants. That's what I really want to do with my life but I started talking online about SMSF and gold, and the fact that you can get your super out of the big systems before it crashes and you can buy gold. And everything went crazy. I used to set up like 2 SMSFs a month, 24, 25 a year. All of a sudden we were doing 2 a day. That's 40 a month. It's
So when was that?
1,000%.
Just after you started talking to me?
No, I wish. We'd be going back a year now.
Yeah.
Just a year. So we had 1,000% increase in business, just like that, just because I started saying to people, you can get SMSF and get gold. And yeah, the business went absolutely crazy. And I thought, well, okay, I can't retire. Obviously, this service is needed amongst my like-minded freedom fighters. Before that, I was actively in the things that we're doing, the parades and what we call, not the riots, what are they called? What do we do? I don't know, when we all get together and chant and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've even forgotten, but they're coming up again now. But yeah, I was actually involved in that. I was trying to protect my kids from the vaccine. I was doing all sorts of things. But then all of a sudden, my SMSF skill just like all of a sudden was in very high demand. So anyone that came to me at that time, I do apologize, because we had 1,000% increase in business in a matter of weeks. I don't know any business that can cope with that. So I had to get on new staff, 10 new staff, that means 10 new computers, 10 new desks, a bigger office, bigger IT, bigger insurance, bigger rent, bigger everything. And of course, when we set up an SMSF, we don't get paid for about 10 weeks.
Yeah.
So we were actually running at like a 30 to 40,000 a week loss to get all this running. But I
So
did it
let's
anyway because
I just
yeah,
want to
sorry.
make it clear. Let's put that another way. What you were effectively doing was, for every one of those folks that were sent to you to set up a SMSF, you were fronting the self-managed super fund company cost of
Yeah,
setup and associated other bits and pieces up
yeah,
front. You weren't asking it
yeah,
from me,
yeah,
for instance, as
yeah,
somebody
up
wanting to
front.
get my super converted.
Yeah, it was up front. It was out of pocket. I had to pay with my credit card $538 to set up the company. That
For
doesn't sound
every
like much, but
person.
if we're doing 40 a week, that's 21,000 a week I'm putting on my credit card, plus the staff and the IT and the rent, and then not getting paid for 10 weeks. So I was drawing off my home mortgage to fund all of this. I didn't mind because I knew the money would come eventually, and it just exploded. I couldn't just walk away because it seemed like everyone really wanted our services. So,
Mm,
but then we started really, really coming into trouble, because what we found is that at the end of the process, maybe 1 in 10 clients that order the service, we would set up the company, pay the money, pay all the staff, do everything, and then they'd go, oh, you know what? Oh, I've changed my mind.
yeah.
I'll go, but hang on, you ordered a service, we're out of pocket $1,000 or more. You
Mm,
can't just change your mind. That's like,
mm,
getting a painter to paint your house and then 95% of the way through go, no, 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 don't worry about it, and expect not to pay for it.
mm.
So what we ended up doing is implementing a $660 deposit, because that at least covers the cost of the company and an extra like $100 for our time. We had to introduce that just to keep the cash flow growing, because at that time I was going, look, I'm running out of home mortgage. I can't keep drawing down.
Yeah.
How do we pay the staff? So the $660 deposit kicked us going again. We had enough cash flow to keep going. This particular client you're referring to, Carl, she put in the order form. She signed the order form to say she'd pay $2,200 for the setup. She paid the $660 deposit. We set up the company. We set up the trust. We set up everything. We sent her paperwork, 200 pages of all this paperwork. In fact, she can walk with that and set up, and she's got an SMSF.
Yeah.
But then she turned around and said, oh, no, I've changed my mind. She was really, 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 really rude and aggressive. She made one of my staff members, a young 18-year-old girl who I really, really like. She's a fantastic girl. She made that staff member burst into tears and walk out of the office saying, I can't do this anymore. So I went back to her, this client that we were talking about, and just said, look, we don't want you as a client. We'll give you your money back. Just go away. So I offered her money back. She didn't get back to me for months. Then she sent me an email, I want my money back, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, look, we've already spent the money. Anyway, that's what this bad email is about, and the letter and everything she's put over a whole lot of social media posts is that, she's carried on about all sorts of really defamatory comments, really horrible stuff that, we're fraudulent, we're scammers, blah, 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 blah. We're not. We're running as a non-profit. We're just trying to help people. Like, when I get feedback like that, look, we've set up 750 funds. And all of our clients are so grateful. We get presents. I'm drinking wine tonight. I can't remember the name of the client that sent me this, but it was not just one wine. We got 4 wines and a hamper. And it's lovely. Jesus, nice wine. I buy cheap stuff. This is obviously not cheap.
No.
Yeah, we have so many happy clients. And then for this one rude, abusive, abrasive, defamatory client, I felt like packing up last week and just going, you know what? I'm going to go to my farm, play with my goats. But I have to keep coming back to the fact that we've set up 750 funds, and so many of our clients are so grateful. They want us to keep doing this. For this one bad-mouthing person, it's just really sad. I've now offered her her money back and just said, just go away. Just apologize for what you've said, because it's all not true.
Yep.
And I'll give you your money back. Go away. But some people love drama. They just love it. I'm in a position now where I could take her for defamation. I could hand her ass.
Yep, absolutely.
I could spend 50 to 100,000 in legal fees handing her ass, and I can do that. Or I could give that money to freedom causes. So in some ways, I want to take her to court and hand her ass, but on other hands, I was like, well, there's better things to do with my time and my energy than fight some whatever she is. So. Yeah, I don't know. I'm seeing my lawyer in the next week and I'll go from there. But I'd much prefer to give that money to good causes rather than lawyers. But anyway,
she's
that's it.
Certainly had that offer, and I've seen the email that you sent her, and I don't think it's unreasonable for you to expect that she retracts. And I believe that she did pull down from the sites where she posted. A few days ago. That's at least what she told me. But others have screenshot and whatever and reposted them in other places, and it still seems to be floating around. So it's important that we set it straight here. The things that were outlined in that letter are defamatory. There is no truth, in the layout and whatnot, or the argument presented. In fact, you've only been presented half of the argument, and usually when that happens, the person giving you that half of the argument does so for a reason, because if they were to tell you the whole side of it, they may not come out looking so well. Anybody who's going to abuse, 18-year-old staff who are essentially admin staff and not involved in the SMSF process, other than answering the phone and channeling a call to somebody who is my understanding of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
no call for that.
It's really disappointing because I've seen it the whole way through this movement, that the freedom movement just seemed to fight each other. It's really disheartening, really disappointing. We're never going to get anywhere until we stop tearing each other down and start building each other up. Nobody's perfect. I am absolutely, honestly say, Freedom Financial Solutions and myself, we've made mistakes. We're human. Everyone makes mistakes. But the moment, I knew this time was coming, because I knew that I couldn't help that many people without one person deciding to trash me, and I knew it was coming. But yeah, it's still really disappointing, and there's other things happening. Reunite Democracy seems to be in trouble and closing. Parents with Questions is in a legal dispute. For those that don't know Parents with Questions, they've been doing a fantastic job helping people get into land communities. We've had our own disputes over our own Witherin project. People just fight each other. They don't trust each other. They don't trust the process. The bigger picture we need to focus on is preparing for our survival, not big slapping each other.
Yeah,
it's
not
really
trying to one up each other.
Exactly, and that's why Yeah, last week I was at my Gold Coast project at Withering and playing with goats, feeding baby goats, and I just went, this is what I want to do. I don't want to
Yeah,
fight
nice.
with people and set aside my time and energy live with people doing. But anyway, I have to refocus on all the people we're helping. So the good news is I will move on and forget this woman, and hopefully everyone else will too, and get back to helping people.
Yeah, it's very sad. I think the lady concerned is fairly senior in the common law side of things in New South Wales, and I think a lot of the people that are involved in that movement get caught up in their own self-importance and their ability inside a common law sphere, and they may be very gifted inside a common law sphere, but you didn't sign a common law contract. You signed a commercial agreement, and that's two different things. And if you're going to be a common law proponent, then the first lesson should be you don't sign commercial law contracts.
Yeah,
If you're not happy with that, you write one up yourself and see whether or not the other party wants to sign it.
yeah,
Um, so there is no common law comeback, as may have been suggested by people
yeah.
on
That,
the common law chat sites. There is no enforcement arm, and B, you're only saying that because you're acting on half of the information presented to, let's take it to its nth degree, a trial by jury of our peers. When all the evidence is presented, you'd be guaranteed you'll be wondering why you're in court in the first place. So
mm, mm,
there will be only one winner, and that will be the Freedom Financial Solutions side.
mm,
Because all you have done, as far as I can tell, with everybody else, I have not had one complaint other than from this one person,
mm,
from all of the people that I've sent you in the last 12
mm,
months. And I don't know exactly how many that is. We've never actually been back through and checked out, but maybe I can do that. Um, but never have I had one complaint other than, "Oh, no, I can't do it because of this reason," or, "Oh, I can't do it because of that reason." But
mm.
never had a complaint about the service at all. Some people like a personal touch. Some people like to be able to pick up the phone. Well, let's understand that Cass has outlined how the business has grown in the last 12 months or so. You're requesting, the equivalent of picking up the phone and asking to talk to Rupert Murdoch at, Fox in America or whatever, somebody very busy and at the top of the change.
Yeah,
And they don't have the time for that. They're off running the businesses. So that's why they employ staff, knowledgeable staff, and you guys in particular have an amazing online library and
yeah,
videos and Q&As and all sorts of things. So if you have questions while you're going through the paperwork that you've been sent, all the answers are there. And I guess if there are one or two questions that you do have, you can send them in by email, and you're likely to get an answer within hours rather than waiting for somebody to call you back when they can.
yeah. And I have online, and so does Mary Jane. We have online every single week. I was doing it twice a week, now once a week. Log online, ask me any question you want, because it's easier for me to do it in a group setting. Because like today, I had like 20 people on the chat, and when one person asks a question, I give the answer. It answers 10 other people's questions. So in the
Sure,
space of
yeah.
an hour, I can answer everybody's questions and everybody learns from it. So there's no shortage of resources. This lady's complaint was that the 18-year-old that answered the phone wasn't able to answer her questions. And poor little Mika, she was just saying, look, I don't know. And Catherine and
Mm.
Mary Jane aren't here. And then she got an absolute earful of abuse over it. Yeah, it's just really horrible. And yeah, Carl, there's plenty of resources. Everyone can find their answers with our material. And I am available. I'm not available for one-on-one calls, but I am
Yeah.
by email, and I am by our online chat sessions that I run regularly. Back to the common law issue, like I would happily go in front of any common law tribunal or a mediation service or anything with this woman and present the case.
Mm.
Happy to. Anyone out there runs a mediation that wants to mediate, let's do it. And let's put it on a public channel. Happy to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. If you want to come and do it, we'll do it on here.
Yeah,
Be
you can
good
put out
be great to
you
see
put out the
how.
invitation to her to come and talk about it with us on this channel.
Yeah, absolutely, and we'll get a mediator. I'm sure I can find a mediator, and yeah, we can do that here. Talk it out, because that's what we have to do. These things can't be left to fester, folks, and it doesn't matter whether it's this issue or you've got a problem with your next door neighbour or somebody across the road or somebody at work or whatever. By letting these things fester, they eat at us. They keep us angry. They keep us unfocused on what we can be should we not be angry at this person.
Keep
Just
us awake
imagine
at
what we
night.
might be able to build together. But at the moment, we have this blockage that's minor in the scale of things. It is really minor, and having the opportunity to know the person involved here, even though I've only met her a couple of times, I consider her a dear friend in Sydney. I don't have too many friends in New South Wales, and when I go there, she is one of the few people I count on, one hand, that I really look forward to seeing and having a conversation with. She's a very intelligent lady, and witty, smart. Love. I hate being in this position, but here we are. It is what it is. And if this were the other way around, if you had only told half the story, and were sort of hiding, some thing that you may have done that might have been a bit of a trigger, then we'd be having the same conversation on the other foot. I'm not playing favourites here with anybody or for any reason, but I just think we can figure this out. And if we can't figure this out, what hope have we got of ever working together? This is such a small pissant little thing.
That's
The
my
division.
concern, Carl.
No,
That's
well,
my
I'm coming
concern,
with you to
Carl.
Witheren. If this is the case, I'm coming with you to Witheren. You give me a tall enough gum tree, I'll give you a television and a radio station of your own. How's that?
Yeah, and just get out of it.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
it really bothers me and my hope for society. But anyway,
Yeah.
leaving that aside, did
Constant goat feeding and goat cuddling programming may be negotiated.
Yeah, absolutely. We need more people to feed the goats. So on Witheren, we've had opportunities come up there if anyone's interested to get in. Some people have pulled out, which is great, because that enables other people to have opportunities. And I can tell you what, when I'm there, it is beautiful. Feeding the baby goats. 5 baby goats were born while I was there. We've got
Wow. Are you
all of the
saying when
sheep
you're
are
not there,
pregnant.
it's shit? Sam doesn't have any impact at all. It's just shit when you're not there.
No, it's always good. I just wish I could be there more. I flew home to Canberra. I went swimming in the Gold Coast, and then I flew home to Canberra where it was snowing.
I was going to say, was that the day it snowed?
The very first thing I did, I walked in, cuddled my dog, and the second thing I did was book my flights back to the Gold Coast.
Woohoo!
So absolutely fantastic. People who are interested in a community project where you can go and live in a community, small community, and live a life on the land. It's about where we're planting crops and getting animals, and this is what we need to focus on, folks. Because I don't know who watched news.com today. I always check news.com just as something to do every morning to see what sort of crap they're spreading us. I sent Carl the link. But the number one headline all this morning was 3 weeks until global catastrophe. 3 weeks. That's news.com. That's mainstream. They're a little bit right wing, but they're mainstream media. So I'll read some of it here. Grim X-date looms for America. And some of the wordings is that the impact of such a catastrophe will be felt across the planet, including Australia. So they're actually mainstream themselves have put a date on the financial collapse, and that's 3 weeks' time. So we have bigger and better things to worry about than pissy little $660 refunds. We need to prepare. We need food.
Yeah.
We need everything to get ready for what's coming.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably going to be in line with the debt issue that America are facing, raising their debt ceiling. I don't think that is going to get raised.
That's what the article is about.
Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting things happening with the banking system in America at the moment. In fact, I've been looking through. I had a document sent to me that is. A number of documents sent to me now from the same source that essentially outlining what I believe would be a military tribunal trial operating under the laws of God the Creator. And it's exceptionally detailed. It lists companies, businesses, people. And I was just looking through one of the documents before we came on, and a number of the banks that have already crashed in America are listed in this document. And it's interesting, JP Morgan Chase are also mentioned, and JP Morgan Chase seem to be the bank of choice that are buying up the larger collapsing institutions in America at the moment. So I know nothing about the financial industry, and the Lehman Brothers crash is all I know about the Lehman Brothers crash is how to say the Lehman Brothers crash ostensibly. But I know that it triggered a global financial crisis, hitherto unseen proportions. I believe that if JP Morgan Chase were to have the plug pulled on them in some way, they are holding trillions upon trillions of dollars worth of debt that is played off in the market somehow. And that could be the trigger point. If the US debt ceiling isn't raised, if public servants aren't going to get paid,
that'll
could
be a
that
trigger
be?
point. Absolutely. And that's what this article is saying. So that
Right.
is, date are they saying? 3 weeks away. I think it's the 1st of June. If that debt ceiling isn't raised, that's going to trigger the economic collapse. That's what the article's saying, and we've known about it for a while. With the banks collapsing, I've seen a bit of research. I haven't verified it 100%, but the research I saw was that the trillions of dollars that have been involved in the 4 banks that have collapsed in the US in the last few weeks, however much that adds up to, is more than the collapse in the 2008 GFC. So we've already had a bigger banking collapse than the GFC. It just, people aren't, like, it's been hidden. It's been shoved under the carpet, but it's there. And when people start realizing it, there's another, I think it was 700 plus banks in the US in financial crisis.
Well, I read the other day that there were 753 banks that had already gone down or had flagged going down, were putting hands up for their version of receivership or whatever it was going to be. That might also have been a number of those institutions may not have qualified under all these new, financial codes that have been in place since, well, particularly January 1 this year when they became enforceable. So a lot of institutions have closed down, but that has let a lot of debt go free into the market. And because they were smaller institutions, I imagine they were backed, like our smaller ones, by bigger institutions who can absorb only so much debt. Is that right?
Yeah, and also what the US government have done is just print more money to back out, to print enough money to pay out all the depositors in Signature Bank and the other ones that have failed. But they've been very, very cagey about, well, are they going to print enough money to pay out every bank? And even if they are, that is not a good solution, because that is just printing money, inflation, and just we'll end up in hyperinflation like Germany in the 1940s. We will crash. So whichever way you go, if the government doesn't back up the banks, it's the end of crisis. It's crisis. If the government does back up the banks and print the money, it's crisis. I've been saying this for a year and a half. There is no way out of where we are. We are too far deep in the hole in the ground to dig our way out. There is no way out other than the collapse. It's all just a matter of time. I keep saying I believe it's around the corner. I've been saying that for 18 months though. Mary Jane here, she calls it a controlled demolition.
Yep.
Which is a great term, because what she means by that is they're not going to let it just crash like the GFC. They're going to keep pushing the can further and further down the road to try and hang, people will wake up too quick. People will wake up. When they wake up and their superannuation balance is half of what it was the day before, people are going to go, oh, shit, what's going on? They don't want people to wake up, because too many people are waking up. I believe we're on the verge of an awakening. There are more and more people every single day And the quicker this comes down, the quicker more people wake up, and then we might stand up and fight them. So they're pushing it further and further down the road, but it can't keep going. I watch the budget. I'm a real nerd. I've watched the budget for 20 years. I sit down, I watch every single word coming out of their mouths, because what they
Do you have a
say
bucket beside you?
what they say is so much more important, because what the media reports the next day is a really filtered down version. I
Yeah.
like the words out of their mouth. And I watched it this year just going, what the F am I watching? It felt like
Mm.
I was watching a fiction, like a movie,
Mm.
because the Treasury is, Chalmers is like, the Australian economy is booming, everything is fantastic. We're going into a surplus for the first time in 15 years, and we're going to spend all this money on this and this and this and this and this. What normally happens in the budget is they roll out all their spending and they make you feel all good because they're going to give this much to hospitals and this much to schools, and on it goes. And then they turn around and go, but hang on, we're going to tax this and we're going to do this and we're going to do this. And then you go, oh, shit.
Yeah.
This time it wasn't. It was all spending. Oh, we're going to tax cigarettes and some exports. I just sat there going, who in their right mind can believe this absolute bullshit? Once again, they're just kicking the can further down the road.
Aren't there tax cuts? Aren't there tax cuts too? Great promises of tax cuts, which actually, if you figure it out, are better for the wealthy than they are for the poor, by a significant margin.
Absolutely better for the wealthy than the poor. It's always been the way. But watching this budget, I'm just like, they are just kicking the can further and further and further down the road, making everyone feel all comfortable and, oh, isn't this lovely? Whilst everything collapses around us.
Yeah. Well, can I ask a question about a hyperinflated economy? Like you mentioned, Germany in the 1940s, where people were literally taking wheelbarrows full of money to go and buy a loaf of bread.
Yep.
What would the position of a person holding precious metals be should hyperinflation take over the country and we still have, the fiat paper money system happening? Is there a benefit, or is there a danger?
Absolutely. The thing that happens in all the research I've done, and Jim Rickards, if you YouTube him and watch his videos, he's fantastic. He talks about that as the economy collapses and hyperinflation takes off, gold goes with it. So the value of your fiat money is dropping. Now you need $100,000 to buy a loaf of bread, but the gold is going up at the same value. So now your gold is worth $1 million. So anyone who's in gold, you're running along with the hyperinflation. You're great. And that is the reason to be in gold and silver as this economic collapse happens. And we are now, if what I'm reading is correct, we are so close to the edge that time is of essence. Get your gold, get your silver, get your money out of the bank. If you haven't already, look at the self-managed super fund. Go through Carl. He'll introduce you to me. Get your superannuation out of the system. Get it into gold and silver. Just do everything you can to prepare for what's coming. That's what's important for us to focus on.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, I'm pretty excited to hear how we go with a few more self-managed super fund folks. If you're interested, then by all means, get a hold of me, Carl at vofhq.com, and I'll make sure that your name gets put right on Cass's computer. I mean, she'll only send it to her assistant, but I'm putting it on Cass's computer. I'm telling you, that's just how it's going to work.
And one thing, Carl, I'd like to talk about before we log off is people with small balances. It is an issue. It's difficult to do an SMSF with a small balance. I have until now resisted putting small balance people together to make an SMSF with say 4 people with a small balance. But I'm willing to consider doing it. And I think the only way to do it, Carl, would be you and I run a separate show. And I've got all the emails you sent me today of the clients that have inquired and anyone else who's got a small balance that wants to inquire. and we run a special show just for those people interested, and I can explain how it can all work, because it is complicated. Small balance people who are strangers coming together, very complicated. But if I can explain it all really, really, really carefully, and those that still want to do it come together, the state we are in at the world, I'm happy to work with that and see what we can do.
Is geographic location to each other important?
Not really these days. With a lot of the stuff we do is DocuSign. So probably more important is IT literacy. Some people we simply haven't been able to help because they don't want email, they don't want a bank account, they don't want, it's like, well, we just can't do it. Coming back to the common law issue, SMSF is still stuck in the system. You can't just take your super out and run away with it. It's still stuck in the corporate system. It's got to be done in accordance with ASIC and in accordance with the ATO. We are still bound by those rules, but you can at least get it out of the share market and into gold and silver.
And you can hold it. That's the important part.
Yeah, you can hold the physical gold and silver. So yeah, the biggest impediment is more IT literacy, because we can do everything on a podcast and a Zoom meeting and a DocuSign agreement. We don't. Most of our clients are all around Australia. Occasionally, someone walks into my office. I'm like, oh my god, because there's not many people in Canberra that are awake. Most of our clients are Australia-wide. So geography is not a problem. It's the fact that you are able to sit in front of a computer and occasionally do some banking transactions and signing things.
Yep, cool. Okay, well, if folks want to get more detail on that, wonderful. Give me a bell or send me an email, carl@vofhq.com, and I'll send all that through to you, Cass. Like I say, people up in far north Queensland last week when I was up there were interested in learning more about it, and one of them in particular had about $70,000, so he would be in that, exactly in that realm that you're discussing there, folks that don't have much. I think there were 2 or 3 people that I've been talking to recently who've got somewhere between, $25,000 and $50,000 or $60,000. So you don't have to know each other, but you do have to be IT literate and be aware that you are part of a governed entity, I guess, and all of you need to do your bit, I guess, to stay compliant. That's essentially how it is, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to stay compliant, because the penalty for non-compliance is 50% of your super. And if you're all in together and one person is not compliant, it can affect everyone else. So that's why I've withheld doing it, because it's complicated. But I'm willing to run a whole session and see who's willing to do it with other people, and then we can introduce people into a like-minded group, and then start doing that just to try and help those that have got smaller balances.
Would having the super funds vaulted rather than being individually stored with the participants, would that be a hindrance or a help in this sort of situation?
Yeah, good idea, Carl. That might be the way to go, because there's got to be a level of trust as well, because if these strangers are coming together and they've now got access to each other's super, vaulting might be a really good way around any lack of trust in that regard.
Okay, well, maybe I need to go and have a talk with a vaulter.
Yeah, well, Ainsley Bullion that we've that I know you work with well, and As Good as Gold that I've had a lot to do with. They all have their vaulting facilities that we can use.
Yeah, sure. So maybe as a part of a topic to talk about if we all get together and do that. You're right. So if people are interested in that, then I guess also contact me, carl@vofhq.com. And I know you're going to have to set up a little extra basket in your inbox somewhere to funnel those ones off to one side, and tell me when we're going to set up this meeting, Cass.
Yeah, I've got it. I'll talk with you tomorrow about it.
All right, bloody great. I'm sorry you missed yoga for me, but thanks for coming on.
All right, thanks, Carl. Good to talk to you as always.
You too. Cheers. Thanks very much. Looking forward to having a chat.
Okay.
I've got to talk to you about a certain gold mine that I visited.
Yeah, I'm free tomorrow. I've got a bit of time up my sleeve tomorrow, so yeah, give me a call.
All right, look forward to it.
Okay.
Great stuff. Have a great night. Right. Catherine Smith from Freedom Financial Services based in Canberra, but works all over the place and is not planning any more adventure holidays in the near future. God love her. Keep an eye out over the next 24 hours or so. There is supposedly going to be news on Hunter Biden's indictment or charging. Whether that's going to be a soft or a hard charge, we'll wait and see. I wouldn't expect it to be a hard charge. There is also apparently, I'm hearing stories about something happening at the southern border. I know that there seems to be lots of extra queuing going up at the Mexican side of the border at the moment. Whether or not they've actually closed it or whatever, I'm not completely sure. But keep an eye out what's going on there. There is also stories breaking across Midwest and Northern America where immigrants, people who've come across the border, are being held in, $300 a night hotel rooms, booked out entire hotels, and are just, living there at the moment. If you try and go into that hotel, if you try and film around those hotels, they have security that chase you off fairly rapidly. So looks like the Biden administration, we all knew they were shipping people across the border and then just putting them on a plane and disappearing them, including children who they wrote special legislation for so they didn't have to return them back to their country of origin or relatives. In most cases, or in a lot of cases, those children were kidnapped from their parents in places like Venezuela and Guatemala, and have been used to try and aid others trek across the border, gain sympathy in some way, shape or form. Bloody horrible. But hearing a lot of stories that things are going to break at that border in the not too distant future too. So yes, the US debt ceiling is what I figure will be the trigger too. Cass is 100% on the money with that, and we'll try and keep an eye at it over coming days and weeks. I'm going to leave it there tonight, folks. Have yourself a good night. Thank you very much for your support. If you want to keep supporting us, please, maybe you can help me buy a haircut. You can donate at vofhq.com, or by all means, please become a member, because we are going to give away some silver thanks to Ainsley Bullion, and depending on how the conversation goes with Cass, we might even see if we can't give away a bit of gold at some stage, but that'll involve her coming out and helping me dig it up. That's just how it's going to be. You should see the shocked look on her face. Have a good night, folks. Watch those dickheads on the road. Eh?
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!